Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mir, pranam, satnam, ni hao, buenos dias, hitche, konnichiwa, sabarikrab, salangwa, esh, agape, akwaba, welcome, what up, though? This is a brief consideration for the week, just a general joint. World citizenship, simple, easy as pie. Methodology, twofold, dosefold. First part is establishing an international convention on world citizenship. And in this international convention, it is basically establishing the methodology or the actuality, as well as the methodology and the sanction and the standard for conferring essentially, effectively, world citizenship for those who have the interest to do such. And this is the way it works. With the convention, the nations that sign on to this are basically agreeing to allow this to happen from amidst their citizenry and residents. And so, in doing this, for those nations that opt in to this convention, this is the way it works. Any individual who has, or I should say any, but an individual who has a citizenship within a nation, this is the standard methodology. An individual who has citizenship within a nation can relinquish that citizenship and instead secure the equivalent of a permanent resident status for that same nation. And essentially doing so, given the standard arrangements in the Republican world political system, the difference between the status of citizen and the status of a permanent resident generally is that a citizen has the right to vote and is also conferred with Social Security benefits. Sometimes health, sometimes full health, sometimes education, sometimes full education. But whatever those benefits are, injury and destitution or whatever else, it's gone. Or whatever, basically is actually just, if the nation provides that for the permanent residents, then it continues along the lines. But the citizen becomes a permanent resident. But in becoming a permanent resident, again, no voting, and none of the citizen rights or privileges or whatever else it's called, but just status as a permanent resident. And there it is, done deal, sealed. And at the same time, though, the person is provided with credentials as a permanent resident of that nation, so that person can travel and still have access to the other machineries of of the world, opening bank accounts and additionally getting jobs, because there's still that legal status of a permanent resident. And same taxation arrangement. So whatever tax a permanent resident is, income tax particularly, but obviously property tax or whatever else, all the same responsibilities and obligations of taxation, and additionally that a permanent resident has, that the individual has as well. And so that's the basic gist of it. That's the first part of the convention. The second part of the convention is that, and the convention can include certain requirements, like the person might have the necessity of completing an application and a process that is an international standard, not a nationalistic standard of its own way of doing it, but an international standard across the board. So there's some balance and fairness and integrity in that joint, and it's not some obstructive type of barrier. But an international standard application may involve even a test of international knowledge, of world knowledge, at least geography or some history, some principles, and just basic facts about the earth. So there's some type of intrinsic vetting, but just the notion of deferring full citizenship to a status of permanent resident shows some type of integrity and intentionality and knowledge within that process. The other thing also is that the person, whatever the person's name is to begin from being the citizen, it's the same name. So there's no name change specifically involved in the conference of permanent residence and essential world citizenship. Also, there's the full integrity in terms of the process. So the person providing a proper identification and paperwork confirming the individual's identity, making sure there's no outstanding criminal charges or involvements in that respect. That everything is copacetic in terms of the person's status with the national government, generally speaking. And the notions of political dissidence, and additionally, that's another thing. But just in terms of a standard for the international convention, again, benevolent standing within the government. And then let's see. Okay, so no criminal joints, full proper identification, and then. I think debt is another thing of consideration, depending on what the national rules are concerning debt. It shouldn't be an obstructive requirement, but it is a matter of there being whatever the protocols are for that nation, but that included within the convention as an international standard as well. So same name, there's no name change specifically involved in the transferring from citizenship to permanent residence. Permanent residency or permanent resident status. So there's that. That's the basic gist of the first part. So that's actually comparatively simple, straightforward, fair, and strengthening for world society. Just because it's necessary. People, there's the national construct is like busting at the seams because people are expanding. Life is growing beyond those abstractions. So this is a way of solving that, and it is giving something up. Citizenship, voting, that's a very significant thing, as well as the social security measures or social security benefits, and additionally letting that go. Now that brings the second fold part of the convention. So the second convention is that, again, the person still has the same obligations. The person is based in the land, based in the country from which is conferring the permanent residence, but is essentially have that being as world citizenship. So again, the person can travel from nation to nation with a passport issued by the government according to the standard protocols in terms of passports being issued to permanent residents. That's something to work on, but that's the basic element of that. So the person's travel credentials, and additionally, are based upon the nation that is conferring the permanent resident status. And again, same income requirements, income taxation requirements, and everything else that is incumbent upon permanent residents already. Now, that being said, for the second part, it's a World Citizen Pension Trust or pension fund. And so the basic joint of this is that the second requirement, the second thing that's involved is that whatever the person pays in terms of the person's domestic taxation responsibilities, that's federal, state, provincial, local, whatever the income tax requirements are for that person. If we define that as the disposable income, what the person receives after the taxes, the income after taxes, then 50% of that goes to the World Citizen Pension Fund. So plain and simple, 50%, 50%. And that is administered by a collective administration agency that includes international government organizations and NGOs like the Red Cross, SEVA International, and additionally, but an oversight board that administrates, or an oversight board that governs an administration that facilitates the management of those monies. And that pension fund is utilized for the purposes of providing the Social Security for world citizens across the earth. So when somebody has the necessity of a need that falls into the category of social services, according to the definition of the International Convention, that can include health, that can include education. It should include all those things comprehensively, like the most comprehensive methodology of social benefits to the world citizenry, according to the world principles. that's what there's for beyond whatever is covered as that's provided to the individual as a permanent resident. So if the nation already provides those services to its permanent residents anyways, then there's less of a need. But if there's something that the nation doesn't provide, then the pension fund is for that purpose. And so there is the propensity of it being utilized, dispersed to individuals to account for like rent or otherwise, and there being case managers even, there being some type of infrastructure that manages and ensures that these things are being utilized in a responsible way. And there's the propensity and actually the recommendation of the eventual establishment of facilities, whether it's retirement homes or other types of facilities whereby there's a greater economies of scale. So it's not just a matter of like paying whatever prices that are within the domestic economy, and like bleeding the pension fund for that purpose to account for the needs that people have, but instead having some increasing infrastructure so that there's increasing stability amidst conditions and everything else. So that's the basic thing. One, the convention, and then including one, the transfer from being citizen to permanent resident, and then dos, contribution to a pension fund that covers all world citizens. And it's done. Flowing like that. So that's the joint. Engage. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mir, pranam, satnam, zaijian, adios, chehe chaklis, sayonara, metta samadhi, salangwa pyongwa, eshwasol, agape ke erini. Esimpin asamuji kilik ufred, one love and peace, happiness, liberation.